Chapter 3. When money doesn't work. What we call economics today is really just the study of money and of the kind of society that arises from the increasing use of money. Economists don't seem able to think about the subject in any other way. An example is the classic textbook on economics by Nobel Prize winner Paul A. Samuelson. Samuelson puts money on a pedestal. It is a basic fact of his concept of economics, beyond question or modification. Samuelson allows that there are certain drawbacks to a money-driven economy. Specifically, such an economy is inclined to break down, leaving people high and dry. In less complicated systems, people are inventive in hard times, finding ways to barter what they have for what they need. If I am hungry and you are naked, I can always sew your clothes while you bake my bread, Samuelson writes. But when people start using money, this instinct seems to atrophy. Fewer people bother to sew clothes or bake bread. And the social customs that encourage such exchanges eventually disappear. The Great Depression was a prime example. The productive energies of a goodly portion of the country came to a halt because people didn't have the pieces of paper, that is, dollars, that they believed gave them permission to exchange. In the richest capitalistic country in history, the banks failed, Samuelson declares. Money was hoarded, people went hungry while other people went in rags. Food still existed and so did clothes and other products. But for lack of money, the process of exchanging these virtually ceased. And not to the ape men. Samuelson draws the obvious conclusion. People get hooked on the medium of exchange. What money gives, money can take away. This is a rather alarming admission. It raises important questions. To a mind inclined to entertain them, are there other hidden costs to money that people rarely think about? Should the nation foster other, complementary forms of exchange as a buffer against these? Is it a good idea to put all our eggs into the basket of money? But mainstream economics, liberal and conservative alike, view such queries as hardly worthy of discussion. To be sure, barter was a great step forward from a state of self-sufficiency, Samuelson acknowledges. He offers a pat on the back to the first two ape men who realized that they could better their respective lots through exchange. But to Samuelson and most other economists, self-sufficiency is a backward state, and barter a kind of Stone Age relic. Those ape men were taking only the first step in the great evolutionary march leading to humanity's crowning economic achievement, money. Why do economists dote on money? For one thing, money is the measuring rod that defines their professional turf. They can't study what they can't measure, and because money puts numbers on exchanges, economists can deal with them. The idea of realms of exchange that are not measured by money is unsettling to economists. The possibility that values, which cannot be measured by money, can hold out powerful incentives or rewards, is even more disturbing. That would mean a large part of the economic world would be outside the economist's measurement and control. Specialize, specialize, specialize. But the attachment goes even deeper. It goes to the division of labor, a view of society based upon money. According to the Adam Smith classic The Wealth of Nations, progress requires that each person serve a smaller and smaller role. When each does that one small thing he or she presumably does best, the whole will work together like the wondrous machines that were appearing in the factories of Adam Smith's 18th century Scotland. The key cog is money. An elaborate division of labor would be unthinkable, Samuelson states, without the introduction of a great new improvement, the use of money. The more labor is divided into small segments, the more money is needed to exchange the products and services produced. To the economist, life becomes better the more money is involved. What Adam Smith didn't fully foresee, and what economists like Samuelson today still don't see, is that division of labor becomes something different as it goes on. No longer just a way of producing more efficiently, it now begins to affect the way people connect to one another. As people become more specialized in their spheres of competence, they also become strangers, because they have fewer channels through which to connect except through the medium of money. They become less able to do things for one another informally, as friends and neighbors, as these relationships recede and people become hooked on monetary rewards that come from the specialized work in the marketplace. How money cuts into personal caring. This means much more than just the drying up of channels of barter. It also means the erosion of the functional bonds that hold families and communities together. Families and communities are, in one sense, intricate webs of reciprocal exchange. Help, support, and care go back and forth among the members. Such informal exchange is one definition of social health. As people become more and more specialized in their work, and as they meet their needs more and more through money, this informal exchange gets displaced and destroyed by the ever-expanding commercial marketplace. Instead of connecting as family members and neighbors and friends who offer what is needed, people connect as strangers who buy and sell from one another their specialized functions of production, information, entertainment, and care. Then people wonder why communities don't function and families fall apart. But economists seem oblivious to the connection between their high regard for monetary transactions and the decline of these other modes of exchange, especially the informal kind. Samuelson cites a hypothetical example of natives on Fiji, who have become hooked on the monetary economies of the industrial world. They carry water and empty Standard Oil cans and clothe their infants in Pillsbury flour bags. But if a bank in Austria fails, the natives might lose their livelihoods and perhaps starve. Prop up self-sufficiency instead of banks. Dependency has a regrettable downside. The answer, however, is not to boost the capacity for local self-reliance, Samuelson says. That would turn back the clock to a simpler and poorer life. Rather, we need to make the world safe for dependency, by protecting the bank from failure. It never seems to occur to him that there might be something in between, that we can strive to prevent economic breakdowns, while at the same time boosting the resilience and self-sufficiency of local economies. Encouraging self-sufficiency might even help to prevent breakdowns, on the principle that the mattress with many springs is sturdier than the mattress with just one. More important, division of labor exacts a social toll that the economic textbooks ignore. Those oil cans and flour bags, and the cars and commercial bread associated with them, may wreak havoc in traditional relationships within families and communities. Even if the bank gets going again, the supporting webs of social exchange may be wearing thin. And this does not bode well for the market economy, since the informal bonds of family and community give rise to the literacy, lawfulness, health, and stability on which a market economy depends. One doesn't have to turn back the clock to look for ways to promote those bonds, even as economists are promoting the market culture that tends to pull them apart. This is the role of time dollars. Time dollars are not simply a new kind of money. They are a way to revive the informal modes of exchange in the face of the money-driven market. In effect, this new currency opens a discourse on the ecology of money. It has been recognized for several decades that the natural environment cannot absorb forever the pollutants of industrial society, whether market or communist. The air and water need to be protected. Now we have to recognize that the fragile webs of family and community life cannot absorb forever the process by which informal relations of trust turn into formal transactions involving money. Living underwater. A fish is unaware of the attributes of water, being immersed in it. Time dollars, as a new form of currency, offer a viewpoint outside the water of money-centered thinking. The concept makes it easier to grasp the limitations of that thinking and to see how it distorts reality. There are consequences to using money as an exclusive measuring rod, and not the least of these is the paralyzing belief that society lacks the resources with which to solve its problems. When we cease to use money as our only ruler, we begin to realize that we live in a world of two economies, not just one. One is the formal marketplace measured by, and consisting mainly of, monetary transactions. This is the realm of supermarkets and shopping centers, offices and factories that the media calls the economy. The other economy is the informal networks of helping in families, neighborhoods, volunteer groups, and the like. What we call growth is often merely the transfer of a function from the informal to the formal economy, from an invisible pocket to a visible one. There is no net gain in output, and often there is a loss in social cohesion and well-being. Parenting is a prime example. The first economy of monetary transactions has grown substantially over recent decades by assuming roles once filled by parents. Yet because economists look only through the lens of money, they see only one side of the ledger. In any other industry, if you remove 1 million employees without reducing the job requirements very much, nobody would deny that the industry is woefully short-handed, observed Anonymity, a leader of a movement called socioeconomics and a professor at George Washington University in Washington. Yet that very thing happened when millions of women went to work in industry, replaced with a minimal amount of professional child care. As a result, the parenting industry is woefully short-handed, and television sets and the streets are overworked. This is not an argument for women to stay home but for someone to do more of it. Perversely, the loss to children appears as a double gain on the GNP accounts. The money these women earn in the marketplace, plus the money families pay for child care. When one counts only in dollars, the loss on the social and emotional side of the ledger doesn't get counted. Time dollars bring this loss out of the shrouds, because they acknowledge the value of time that is not exchanged for money. Time dollars give this time an economic identity if not an exact measurement. The full loss cannot be measured, of course. A parent's time is different from kindercares in ways that cannot be quantified. But as an alternative currency, embodying different values than conventional money, time dollars at least serve as a reminder that a lost side of the ledger exists. When money doesn't measure up to every need. Time dollars do more than expose the shortcomings of money as a measuring rod. Equally important, this new currency helps reveal how money falls short as money, that is, as a medium of exchange. It takes a while for the mind to get a grip on the thought. Money failing as money? What else is there? In grade school texts we learned that money is the fruition of an evolutionary quest that began with wampum and stones and ended with a dollar bill. Money is the pure article, streamlined and modern. You can carry it in your pocket, send it zipping between computers in San Francisco and Hong Kong, use it for anything you want, anytime, any place, the perfect lubricant for the gears of commerce. That's probably how a fish thinks of water, the perfect medium. Yet seen from a different viewpoint, the water can appear wet and cold. There are specific consequences to using money that we lose sight of when it's the only thing we know. This is not a wholesale indictment of money. one might just as well offer an indictment of water. But there's a difference between using water and experiencing total immersion in it like a fish. Money is necessary for many things, but it is not adequate for all things, especially the helping and caring exchanges that society needs many more than that money has tended to displace. This problem is rarely discussed in economics texts. The inability of economists to think outside of their monetary water runs very deep. When the time dollar idea first began to circulate in the early 1980s, a number of economists were asked for their opinions. All were identified with good social causes, all were eminent in their fields, and all thought that time dollars violated some fundamental principle of money as they conceived it. One worried that time dollar proposals included no prices. There could be prices, of course, but most time banks don't want them, because they want to operate like the kitchen table, where everyone's time is equally important. The economist thought such an evaluation would be like selling every item in the supermarket for the same price. Another economist charged that time dollars were parochial. Because the concept is based in a sense of family and community, mobility would be hindered and some people would be left out, as though they aren't now. The third economist summed up these concerns when he called time dollars an inferior semi-money at the state level. Yet these inferior dollars seem to sustain endeavors that society greatly needs. They generate public service from people the market has no use for and who have not responded to appeals for volunteerism. They help produce a feeling of family among people who are strangers. Could it be that the deficiencies of time dollars are really advances over money, in crucial respects? Economists regard such thoughts as heresy. Probably the exact sentiment of a fish contemplating the possibility of becoming amphibious. Yet when one looks at the supposed deficiencies of time dollars in more detail, they begin to make life on dry land look possible. Here are 7 major reasons why economists brand time dollars an inferior semi-money. 1. A local currency, time dollars are issued locally and honored locally. You can't earn one in San Antonio and spend it in Hong Kong, not yet, anyway. Conventional money, by contrast, has no local roots. It can move wherever the return is highest or the prices are cheapest. 2. Membership required, time dollars are a medium for a defined group of people, such as the members of a senior center and those businesses that link up with it. Money, by contrast, makes no such distinctions. It provides all the identification one needs to spend it, under most circumstances at least. 3. Limited purchasing power, time dollars are little like trading stamps. You can buy only those products or services offered in the program. With conventional money, by contrast, you can buy virtually anything, with a few exceptions such as Federal Express and car rental companies, which won't take cachet. 4. No prices, most time dollar systems value every hour of service equally, 1 hour, 1 credit, whether you help a retiree with his tax return or scrub his kitchen floor. To an economist, this equality is terrible. A basic function of money is to define prices, which limit products and services to those who can pay for them. According to the laws of conventional economics, high prices or wages attract more people to do the work, thereby increasing supply and benefiting all. 5. An inefficient medium, time dollars require back-office work for every transaction, recording the hours in a computer bank. Conventional money, by contrast, is elegant and simple, at least in theory. Hand a shop owner a dollar bill and that's the end of it. Banking and credit cards involve paperwork, but at least this paperwork generates income. Time dollars involve paperwork without the saving grace of profit. 6. No government backing. Most time dollars aren't backed by a state or local government. They are only as solid as the organization that runs the program and the participants in that program. There is no guarantee anyone will honor them in 5 or 10 years. Conventional money, by contrast, is as solid as the U.S. Treasury. 7. A weak incentive. Time dollars tap such motives as a desire to help and a need to be needed. To an economist, these are low horsepower engines compared to the desire for acquisition and gain. Given a choice between working for money and working for time dollars, people will take money, particularly if they have a specialty that commands a high price. These criticisms add up to a strong indictment. If anyone were proposing time dollars as a complete substitute for conventional money, the case would never even get to court. But time dollars aren't a substitute for money. They are a way to do things that money can't do and to claim back the realm of community that money has invaded. Seen in this light, the weaknesses of time dollars turn out to be advantages. Let us take the criticisms one at a time. The mobility of money. Money is as liquid as water. It can flow between cities, states, even nations, seeking the highest return. It is unencumbered by loyalty or history, human affinity or roots. These qualities make it an ideal medium for a commercial society, economists say. There is no doubt that money's mobility has value. Few people would want to be stuck where they are because they couldn't use their money anyplace else. But mobility has a dark side. A dollar put into a poor community can exit in hours, to a cigarette manufacturer or Japanese electronics firm or a drug baron in Colombia. Of every dollar the federal government puts into Indian reservations, an estimated 75 cents flows out to border towns within 48 hours. Dictators like General Manuel Noriega of Panama and the late Ferdinand Marcos of the Philippines can loot their countries. Banks can launder money from drugs and the mob. Moored to the present point, the Rust Belt was left abandoned when American corporations decided to seek a greater return abroad. The kitchen table emptied as its occupants went off in search of market wages. South African apartheid was underwritten by dollars seeking the highest return unencumbered by moral constraints. Professional sports is one of the few areas of American business in which this footloose quality is seen for what it is, because sports teams still have tangible roots in loyalty and tradition. Customers don't root for a corporation the way fans root for a team. Not so long ago, team owners were people who earned the loyalty of local fans. Tom Yawkey of the Boston Red Sox and Phil Wrigley of the Cubs are almost synonyms for their cities. Their ballparks, Fenway Park and Wrigley Field, are almost European in their quirky sense of place. Today, by contrast, stadiums look almost as much alike as the dollars that built them. Teams are owned increasingly by corporations and partnerships, which have no qualms about deserting a city in search of a more lucrative stadium lease. George Steinbrenner, former managing partner of the New York Yankees, once threatened to move that tradition-laden team, or franchise, in the owner's parlance, to New Jersey. That Steinbrenner lives in Tampa and runs a business in Cleveland may have something to do with his pecuniary attitude toward New York. Pro sports owners grow apoplectic at the possibility of permanent links between cities and teams, since this, like marriage, could impede their ability to play the field. Mobility is one of those good things that has become bad through excess. There is no shortage of forces pulling people and institutions apart in this country. Is it really so bad to have an alternate currency that pulls in the opposite direction, that embodies the value of sinking roots, of building a community or business, of keeping a family together. In the long run, this makes economic sense as well. The state of Missouri enacted time-dollar legislation in large part because the young were leaving and abandoning their parents to the state. Mobility has become an efficient producer of hidden social costs that time dollars can help to counter. Franklin Delano Roosevelt once opened a luncheon address to the daughters of the American Revolution with the salutation, "Fellow immigrants. Our origins are in mobility, but the ideal that drew the New England settlers was the city on a hill. There is little danger that time dollars will stifle the American genius for flux and change. But there is great danger that if we don't remember how to sink roots and build the city, the object of all this wandering may be lost." Money includes everyone who has it. In theory, another virtue of money is that it excludes no one. Anyone with enough of it, regardless of race or class, can walk into a Mercedes-Benz dealership or airline office or any other place of business and purchase whatever he or she desires. Put another way, money is an apartment medium for transactions between strangers. It took hold in Western culture at the trade fairs of medieval Europe, for dealings between itinerant traders who might never see one another again. This quality of money has definite advantages. It helped free society from the grip of feudal hierarchies. Today, it will help peoples in the former East Bloc to break free from the strictures of the old communist states. With money, one doesn't have to belong to any tight circle or clique in order to transact business. Thus, it opens up channels of opportunity to outsiders and those at the bottom. In theory, that is. To this day, Black Americans are not welcome in many real estate offices, no matter how much money they have. Besides, money doesn't always seem so inclusive to those who don't have a lot of it. But more to the present point, money makes trust irrelevant. A medium for strangers tends to turn people into strangers, by drawing them away from relationships in which trust and reciprocity are involved. Time dollars, by contrast, tend to restore such relationships. That a tradesman is being paid does not vouch for his character in any particular way. The very act of participating in a time dollar program, by contrast, marks one as a particular kind of person. Frail retirees open their doors to time dollar volunteers while barring them tightly against others. Time dollar programs do exclude, but so do families, friendships, and relationships of trust. By excluding the selfish and bigoted and uncaring, time dollars can help transcend race and age and other barriers that keep people apart. In Washington, D.C., groups of handicapped people testified in favor of time dollar legislation at the city council, desiring to be included in the exclusive circle of people with something to give. Church groups testified that time dollars would enable them to reach outside the confines of their own religious denomination. In Miami, time dollars have helped bring feuding ethnic groups together, because with this currency, when one group gains, the others do as well. The anonymity of a money economy breeds a hunger to belong to something. American Express sells credit cards as a form of belonging. Membership has its privileges, because in the marketplace of money, people feel isolated and without help. Time dollars offer membership that is real and includes that help. And unlike American Express, time dollar programs do not exclude if you don't make enough money. Money can get you anything. Money can buy anything. To an economist, that means efficiency and maximum opportunities for trade. But in practice, it means a tree that brings forth bad fruit as well as good. Yes, Money can buy books and homes and tickets to a movie. But it can also buy our elected officials and our redwood forests. It can buy crack and assault weapons or whatever else the unscrupulous buyer wants. Clearly, people who earn time dollars don't get the same range of choices. But that's bad only if you think that bribery and drugs and the rest are essential life options, and only if you think that a medium of exchange that encourages friendship and care and trust is unduly restrictive. There is probably no way to remedy the moral ambiguity of money. But one way to lessen it is to lean more on an alternative currency that has good works built right into its genetic coding. Time dollars can't be offered on a street corner for drugs. They can't be dangled as bait to lure people into highly paid but socially useless work. They don't put our lives up for grabs to the highest bidder. If that's inefficient, time dollar advocates will take the rap. But before economists press it too hard, they should stand on a street corner and try to buy caring and trust with those revered dollars in their pockets. Money has limitations, too. Sometimes it can't buy the things that people need most. The invisible hand of price. There is no facet of a time dollar program that causes economists more distress than the absence of prices. In most programs, everyone's time is valued the same, regardless what he does or when he does it. 1 hour, 1 credit, end of story. A few programs tried giving fewer credits for administrative tasks at the office than for helping work in people's homes, only to abandon the attempt as causing more problems than it solved. Prices are absolutely central to the economist's view of the world. They adjust the balance between supply and demand and serve to ration products and services in the most efficient manner, that is, according to who can pay. In theory, prices also send signals to producers as to when to produce more or less. High fees for investment bankers send a signal to college students to swell the ranks upon graduation, and so forth, and in this manner, society's needs are filled, so the theory goes. Yet price systems aren't as efficient as economists believe. That investment bankers make enormous salaries is a dubious sign that America's most urgent need is for more of them. Prices often don't include major costs. The price of a box of Cheerios, for example, does not include the cost of disposing of the empty box, so society gets a false signal as to how much waste it can produce. Then, too, prices are often more the result of corporate bureaucracies than of rational management. One recent survey found that more than half of all corporations change their prices only once a year, if that, despite constant changes in their own costs and market demand. Most important, wages, which are prices for labor, often reflect social status and ancient hierarchies rather than the true worth of work. Investment bankers make much more than home care workers, not because their work is more important, but rather because theirs is a traditionally male occupation, while home care workers are traditionally female. The absence of such ancient baggage is a strength of time dollar programs. It is liberating to the retired housewife to know that her time is valued as highly as that of the retired executive. Economists believe that the lack of prices will throw the whole system into chaos. Demand for rides to the supermarket will go berserk, if prices don't keep the demand under control. Yet the world doesn't always work that way. In families, for example, food at the dinner table isn't put up to the highest bidder. Mom doesn't set a higher price for the drumstick than for the other dark meat, even though the drumstick is in greater demand. Parents and grandparents have even been known to go hungry so that their children can have enough to eat. Economists assume a world of strangers who need to be controlled by a mechanism of price. But in families, churches, sports teams, In situations of affinity and trust, people act according to other principles. Time dollar programs establish such networks, with their own etiquettes of supply and demand. No program has had to face the issue of rationing scarce services yet. There have been plenty of workers to go around. But if scarcity did arise, then two groups would get priority, those whose need was urgent and those who had done the most to help others. Then, willingness to care would replace ability to pay. The efficiency of money. Time dollars require a certain amount of paperwork. Participants report their hours, although not all do, all the time. The credits must be added and subtracted for each transaction. Most programs are aiming to send out regular statements, eventually, like banks. So what's new? Cash may be elegantly simple when it changes hands. But that simplicity often hides an accounting morass that makes time dollars seem paperwork-free by comparison. People who earn time dollars don't have to keep drawers full of receipts for the IRS. Most participants do not consider that a loss. The question of efficiency goes much deeper, however. It's not just a matter of record keeping. It's also a matter of the nature of money itself. Money is not just a medium of exchange. It is also a thing exchanged, a commodity in its own right. People hoard it. They lend it. They play the exchange rates between currencies of different countries. When a car engine also must power an air conditioner, its efficiency in moving the car goes down. Similarly, when a currency does double duty as a commodity, this dual role can impede exchanges between people. It can even displace their needs. This was revealed suggestively in the study of the use of cigarettes as a currency in prisoner of war (POW) camps during World War II. Cigarettes were a natural choice. They were in constant demand, they could be carried about easily and they came in small units like coins. With this currency, there arose a bustling market in tinned milk, writing paper, razor blades, and other items procured from Red Cross distributions and private parcels. Each Red Cross drop brought a marked increase in exchange. There was more to buy and more cigarettes to buy it with. But the cigarettes did double duty as a commodity. As prisoners smoked them, the currency vanished, and the POW economy ground to a halt. People still wanted to buy and sell, but the currency had disappeared, and they had not developed channels or conventions for trading in any other way. This is almost exactly the situation in the Depression that Samuelson describes in the passage quoted earlier. People had become so hooked on one form of money that, with a few exceptions, they couldn't figure out how to do business in any other way. The POW study also shows what happens when money is more than just a medium of exchange. There was another consequence. Because chain smokers tended to trade much of their food for cigarettes, their health declined. And because medical facilities were very limited, their health problems meant fewer infirmary beds for other prisoners who got sick. Something comparable happens in a money economy. When third world countries shift from subsistence crops, like beans, to cash crops, like coffee, to earn dollars to pay their debts to U.S. bankers, the goal of agriculture becomes raising money instead of food. Money as a commodity displaces food and the ability of rural people to provide for their own needs. People go hungry and a mass exodus occurs from rural areas to urban barrios. This even happens in the United States. Out of each dollar the federal government collects in taxes to deal with the nation's needs, 15 cents, $110 billion total, are taken off the top to pay the interest on the national debt. The cost of money as a commodity literally takes food out of people's mouths, right here at home, And that's not counting the enormous cost of maintaining this system of money, a cost that is built into every transaction. The cost of a banking system and automated teller machines and Brink's armored delivery, for example. The cost of FBI agents and police and courts and jails, and of the federal regulatory apparatus that oversees the banks. Time dollars, by contrast, have none of these divergent uses or hidden costs. You can give them but you can't lend them, so they have no value as a commodity. They do one thing and that only, facilitate giving help and care. They cannot be stolen, any more than inches can be stolen, because they serve only as a measure of help given and received. Time dollars cannot be hoarded any more than inches can be hoarded, moreover, because there is no limit on the number that can exist at any one time. With conventional money, the amount you keep under your mattress deprives everyone else. But with time dollars you withhold only from yourself, because the number in circulation is limited only by the desire of individuals to be helpful. The legitimacy of money. Money bears the stamp of the sovereign. It shows symbols of national authority and pride, heroes, and monuments. People trust it. That makes it solid and real. Leave aside the confidence with which Russians currently regard their rubles. If you are a hearty soul, ask yourself how much the dollar bill in your pocket is really worth. The banking industry is tottering. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation is running out of money. The Federal Treasury is essentially a clearinghouse of IOUs, propped up by the Japanese and other lenders from abroad. If the citizens of the nation were to line up at the Treasury one morning demanding something for their dollars, they'd get exactly what they have now, IOUs. In the end, little stands behind the dollar in your pocket besides the public's faith in it. Economics stands closer to religion than most economists care to acknowledge. Why can't people choose to have as much faith in one another as they have in a federal treasury that is over $1 trillion in debt? The Economist says that time dollars are shaky because they are backed only by the goodwill of social service organizations and the like, except where a state backs them, as in Missouri. These could shut down the program or even close their doors tomorrow. Fair enough. Yet the government would have to do that, too, if everyone suddenly lost all faith in the system of money. Service organizations aren't likely to take casually the commitments that build up in a time bank. Besides, those commitments really represent the obligations of individual members to one another. Should an organization fold, the bank would still exist in a computer record. Time dollars cannot be embezzled, ready for someone else to continue the program a little the way Dolores Galloway does in Washington, see Chapter 1. In the end, it comes down to whom and what we choose to trust and the role of that trust in building the world in which we want to live. Is a currency inherently less worthy of our faith because it cannot be inflated or deflated or manipulated by a central command? Are our neighbors inherently less worthy of our trust than are the politicians and international bankers who preside over the system of money? There is another reason that money seems legitimate compared to other kinds of exchange. Money is the handmaiden of contract. It involves specific legal obligations between buyer and seller, as opposed to the encompassing context of trust that exists in families and communities and time dollar programs. This protection seems solid and real, until one tries to use it. Most who have had to hire a lawyer and go through litigation because of a broken contract will repeat the words made famous by Dickens in Bleak House, "Suffer any wrong rather than be subjected to that." It will impoverish you. The proceedings will paralyze you and force you to put your life on hold. Only the lawyers will profit. In the end, you are likely to learn what the great jurist Oliver Wendell Holmes noted nearly 90 years ago. It is not the policy of the law to compel adherence to contracts, he said, but only to require each party to choose between performing in accordance with the contract and compensating the other party for any injury resulting from a failure to perform. In transactions involving dollars, the legal obligation is partly an illusion. Money and contracts are not about keeping your word, they are about getting out of keeping your word as cheaply as possible, by paying dollar damages, if the opportunity arises to make more money off some other sucker. And as many who have dealt with car dealers or home builders well know, getting even that much is a privilege reserved for those who can afford a lawyer in the first place. By that standard, the informal reciprocity of time dollar programs doesn't look so bad. If someone is supposed to drive you to the supermarket and never shows up, you just ask for someone else the next time. Only those enamored of lawyer bills would find that a deficiency. The incentive of money. Economics is psychology in disguise. It postulates a type of human and then projects an entire theory from the kind of person it posits. The image of man in economics is Homo economicus, the acquisitive and self-seeking man, who reckons every life decision upon an exacting calculus of loss and gain. This image is the ghost that inhabits economic theories and models. It is embodied in the sacred principle that people will work or produce only as long as they gain money and will cease at the point where they start to lose. In economic parlance, this is the point where marginal return falls below marginal cost. This image governs respectable thinking about incentives and rewards. Without the premise of a self-seeking, profit-maximizing person, who responds to incentives in predictable ways, economics would have no pretense to science. Nobody disputes that people respond to money. But it is not the only thing they respond to. Economists use a totally outdated model of human motivation, David McClelland, a psychologist at Harvard, once said. And he was corroborated by the defensive football coach of the New York Giants, who told the New York Times that I don't think I've ever worked a day in my life. It's been a joy. I'd do it for a lot less money. Endeavor is more than a series of conditioned responses to money. If this is true in the big money world of professional sports, how much more in the realm of helping and caring work? Time dollars tap the side of human nature that barely exists in economic thinking, the side that wants to help and be useful and simply to feel good. In mobilizing this important resource, money is not very good. Leave aside Mother Teresa and Gandhi. Ask your mother if she would accept market wages to go next door and clean a sick neighbor's house. Then ask her if she would accept time dollars which she could give to Granny across town so that she could get a ride to the doctor. Subtle issues of self-respect are involved. Money can deter action as well as bestir it. One teenager from the Anacostia section of Washington, D.C., was earning time dollars doing yard work for elderly homeowners. The time dollars were important, he said, because otherwise his buddies would think he was a chump. Earning something he could give away was a token of status. Market wages for the same work, by contrast, could have subjected him to ridicule, especially from acquaintances who could make much more by dealing drugs. For $10 an hour, I wouldn't do it, said Herbie Fine, a worker with the Elder Plan program in Brooklyn described in Chapter 4. Speaking of his 2 a.m. missions to help a 95-year-old man. I don't have to go out and search for a job. I worked hard and I have a right to take it easy. If I'm doing something because I want to help, that's another thing.